Hi, I'm Doron Davidson, Managing Director of Global Cybersecurity Operations at Cyberproof. With me here is Yuval Waldman, President of Cyberproof. Cyberproof is a managed detection and response provider that helps clients transform security operations to a cost-effective, cloud-native security architecture.
Great to be here, Doron. I'm very happy to be at Google for Startups campus in Tel Aviv. Great opportunity to be in this studio and talk about interesting stuff.
Cool. Recently, we've heard a lot about the acquisition of Splunk by Cisco, and I was wondering whether we should discuss migrating to cloud-native SIEM worth the hassle today following this acquisition especially.
Let me say a few words first about 2023, which just ended a few weeks ago. It was a tough year for many reasons, globally, geopolitically, but also the macroeconomic environment was tough. Tough for companies, tough for publicly traded companies, tough for CISOs. They had to manage a tighter budget in a longer sales cycle and also with the tough regulations. The SEC went out with the 4-day notice of sharing with the investor and the public, investors' audience and public information about the incidents that are taking place in their companies. And that added a lot of pressure. In that context, looking at the acquisition, the Splunk deal being acquired by Cisco, probably the biggest cybersecurity event from business perspective in 2023, that kind of struck me because, it brought me back to many discussions that I had with CISO over 2023 and now in the beginning of 2024 about their pain points. And I think we should definitely speak about that as we move forward with this chat.
I totally agree with you. And one of the main pain points is indeed the cost efficiency or the lack of cost efficiency that a lot of CISOs are talking about when they refer to Splunk being a non-predictable cost from their perspective. They sign up and they don't really know where it's going to end from budget perspective by the end of the year. Yeah. What are your thoughts? What do you hear from CISOs and CIOs?
Yeah, great point. I think that if you go a few years back, talk about Splunk, I think it was the most advanced SIEM platform in the market with analytics capabilities, SOAR capabilities, IT infrastructure layers. That was a hit, and indeed it led, I think, the quadrant of Gartner, but obviously that has changed. And one of the reasons for that, even before Cisco acquisition, Cisco deal, was cost, as you mentioned. It was unpredictable. It grew exponentially. I remember sitting with the CISO over the past few years, and they were super concerned because on one hand, they liked the product, they liked the usability of that. Their teams, were already adjusted to it, customized into the enterprise systems. But on the other hand, the cost was growing dramatically into licensing costs. I'm talking about if you're a large enterprise company, and we're working in the large enterprise market, as you know, it can sums up to millions of dollars a year, the license. And when they started the journey, it was half of it, even less. And now they need to manage it even in a tighter, budgetary environment. So how do you do that? How do you cope with that once this product is already embedded in your stack? This is one of many challenges that Splunk users in the enterprise market face. I would add to that it's not only today's cost, but also what will happen in the next year and the year after, etc. The Cisco acquisition was kind of another push for them because Cisco would need to fund this acquisition. And one of the ways of funding it is actually, scaling up the price. And that's yet another concern of the CISO. What would happen with the price? Or on the other hand, lowering down the cost of investment in the R&D elements of the product. So on both ends, CISOs were rather concerned and share that with us over time. Now, I'm not saying the Splunk is the bad product. I'm not saying that it doesn't have, capabilities that are very usable in a security organization. Obviously, it's still a significant share of the market. We serve Splunk using companies and customers, but there are some problems and challenges and gaps that I think we should address and discuss and even provide some solutions and ideas on that.
Excellent. I also think that if you add to that the fact that the cloud native SIEMs and platforms have seamless integration it both adds to reducing the complexity as well as reducing eventually the cost, both the cost of the integrations themselves and the cost of managing it over the years. As you said, it's not only about the cost of 2024, it's what's going to happen to my platform in 2025. And for me as an MDR, these costs are piling up. And the more we can actually help customers transition into these native cloud SIEMs, we can see the amount of efficiency that it brings into the table based on these native integrations. And also it adds to the scalability that these cloud native SIEMs provide, which is essential for the rapidly growing data volumes that we see within customers' environments.
Yeah, I'm happy that this discussion is moving to the solution to cloud native platforms, as you say. Let me say a few words about the business context. I think the CISOs, from what I hear from them over time, over the past few years, it didn't start in 2023, obviously much before, is my organization, my company is transitioning, it's transforming into cloud. It's not only the security stack, and I need to follow, I need to adjust. The sources of data, the log volumes are growing dramatically, and we need to manage it carefully in a cloud migrating environment, business environment. And the CISO has become more and more important figure in the C-suite. Is not only he or her, they are not only communicating with the CIO or the CEO or the COO or the CFO, they have direct communication with the board, and not only with the audit committee in the board, rather with all the board members. And they're being asked about results of security posture, about cost, as we said earlier, but they also want to participate in this discussion in the same cloud environment. And I think we saw more and more interest coming from the market, from CISO specifically, on how we can find cloud native solutions, cloud native platforms, including obviously the SIEM, which is the anchor platform in security stack. And this is how they came to us, to Cyberproof, because we're experts, obviously, in cloud native platforms. We're seeing that also in the response coming from the analyst market. Gartner put Sentinel, I think, the Microsoft cloud native platform ahead. This is rather a rapid growth of the importance and the brand recognition of Sentinel. Within only 3 years, it came into a leading position in the quadrant of Gartner. So the cloud native platforms obviously is a strong solution for some of the concerns that we just mentioned.
I agree. Also, it's so you've mentioned this the business aspects. Also, when you think about the advancements in technology, especially these days around AI and machine learning, and we hear all these very large organizations building their own co-pilots, I think it becomes obvious that the more you can put that into the same environment, you're able to provide a better reduction in business risk, in providing organizations the right security measures to help them reducing or at least controlling the risk of their organizations. And we basically leverage that insights that come from these kind of analytics in order to have a faster detection and response and reducing that business risk.
Yeah, moving into cloud native platforms would allow you not only to use the different models of automation and content embedded with it, but also other products. And we're seeing more and more visionary CISOs in the enterprise market asking questions about where do I want to take my stack in the next 3 to 5 years. These are the questions that they are being asked. So they're asking for good partners to share with them their insights and experience. And Cyberproof is rather experienced with some cloud native platforms. And part of it, as you said, is layer of analytics. Yeah, you can use more and more insights coming from the analytical tools, but also integrate into other tools, as I mentioned earlier, whether it's in the EDR level or on the log collection level. These are things that we've developed ourselves over time, complementing the cloud native stacks.
Do you hear board members proactively asking about how AI and analytics can help them reduce their business
Absolutely.
risks?
Yeah, I think both of us actually, a few days ago, last week, we heard a prominent US-based board member speaking about, this is what I want to hear from the CISO. I mean, that person specifically asked for many explanations and many topics to be discussed, but specifically on Gen AI, how do you protect yourself from these new tools, in marketing team or HR, they start using Gen AI engines. Well, what does it do in terms of vulnerability to the security of the organization? But also how you, as a CISO, how can you use this kind of tools in order to improve your security posture? So Gen AI is a revolution, cross geos, cross industries, cross functions. Obviously, every board member wants to know not only on security, but also security, what would be the effect? Yeah, we hear it a lot.
I can tell you that some of the most exciting news that I heard from my team members within the security operations was how excited they are to start working with these kind of tools to help them navigate throughout the environment, whether we're talking about hunters, whether we're talking about L1, L2, L3, even DFIR are now using these kind of tools to better provide these kind of resolutions for our customers.
Maybe for a separate talk that we can have in the future, we can discuss the arms race, because on one hand, your security operation, various teams want to use it. On the other hand, some threat actors are trying to use that as well, who would be using it better and faster, the adoption process and leverage. But that's probably for another session that we will work on in the future.
I know where I'm going to put my money, but it would be an interesting topic indeed. But I think that kind of brings us to the next maybe topic around automation and how these native cloud solutions with their significantly more advanced SOAR security orchestration, automation, and response system can basically help organizations, whether we're talking about an MDR or MSSP, whether we're talking about a single organization. The amount of automation that nowadays you can add on top of these solutions is significantly faster, not only on the detection side or the investigation side. I think that the fact that we can now respond, speaking of the arm race, respond significantly faster with these kind of automated playbooks, and maybe even the development of these playbooks that we can now also utilize AI with, becomes significantly faster, significantly simpler. We've seen some of the most interesting acquisitions, whether it was simplified by Google Chronicle, whether it was the Misto becoming XOR, providing really these very advanced capabilities and integrations that otherwise we would need to develop a lot of those integrations, APIs ourselves, and debugging them and maintaining them and so on. Nowadays, to develop an automation becomes significantly simpler, so we can actually concentrate on the business risks, on the use cases that customers really want to protect themselves, rather than on how do we develop that automation.
I agree with you. I think that, if you look at the investment, the amount of investment being done by what we call the hyperscalers, and it is very much related to when we talk about cloud native platform, whether it's Microsoft or Google, each one of these giants, hyperscaler, they are putting billions of dollars of investment into Gen AI engines that are applicable to our automation process. So the Copilot is native into the Microsoft stack, and I believe that Google will enhance its capabilities through some of the platforms that you mentioned earlier, the SOAR layer, etc. So once you transform to the cloud native platforms, you start to, we mentioned earlier the analytical layer, but also the automation and Gen AI applications. And I think this is a revolution in how we are seeing now, or we will see soon, security operations of large organization. It would enable players such as Cyberproof to focus, as you said, about other values that we can provide to our customers. And we both know that we're working on a roadmap that would allow us to help this CISO communicating with a board member or audit committee member or C-suite person or one of his team members on these incidents and the metrics and the value that you can share with your peers. It's a revolution, and I think we are in a very interesting point to use it.
Totally agree. I think that the next step after becoming more effective and efficient is how do we communicate well between our teams and between the different systems that we have in place. And again, the fact that we're looking at different hyperscalers, different cloud native solutions means that you also have the different components to help different parts of the teams to also integrally communicate with each other and manage kind of whether it's a threat within a certain organization from start to end, whether it's a new automation that needs to be built, and it becomes much simpler and faster process. So again, everything is around efficiency and effectiveness of the team, making sure that we are not wasting valuable time of our team members, but rather using them for really making decisions that are critical for the organization, while what can be automated, we should automate.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk maybe a little bit about transformation. What does it mean? The CISO that I met just a few weeks ago, he told me, look, Yuval, I seriously debate whether I should move out from Splunk to a cloud-native platform. Let's talk about that. So we shared a lot of knowledge about how you can reduce the cost. So we spoke over the past 10 minutes or so about the value add you're getting in analytics, in automation, etc., scalability when it comes to cloud-native platform. But what about cost? So it's still unknown to an extent, but our experience shows that we can deal with that. We've developed in Cyberproof some capabilities, some additional layers that would enable to manage the cost properly, the ingestion, the storage, things that are money makers from these hyperscalers. We know how to reduce it and provide the right assurances for the CISO in terms of budget controls. And I'm happy to hear your thoughts and feedback on that as someone that works with these layers. But at the same time, there is a very positive signal coming from the market when we present it.
I think that, as you said, and as part of this transformation project, having the right consultancy to understand what are the different security controls that an environment has, what are the right security controls that they should have, mapping all of that through the MITRE, understanding the gaps, and through that understanding what within every security control, what are the relevant log sources, what are the relevant data elements within those log sources, and really focusing on that reduces the amount of data that flows, reduces the amount of data that you actually need to keep and manage. But it also makes it significantly simpler for us to then build the right use cases and the right detection rules to have a more efficient process afterwards. So it's both the transformation while keeping already in mind how do you want to see the system at the end of the process as effective and efficient as possible for our customers. And that's what we're thinking of every time that we're going through this whole process of transformation.
Yeah. Transformation is complex because organizations are complex. They have built stacks over years, over acquisitions. So there are some inconsistencies when it comes to some of the security products. And the security products are full with content that was built to a very specific, we're talking about Splunk, a platform. But it's not only about the content or the stack, it's also about the people. The people are used to doing something. They fell in love with that. This is their profession. So how do you meet that challenge? How do you create a change management where you start convincing the various teams? You've been using Splunk over the past 5 years. You build content around it. You believe in that value. And I'm not trying to discredit it. I'm just saying that the trends in the market, including the Cisco acquisition, shifted many CISOs to believing that, no, it's time to move on. And we at Cyberproof, we believe that if we present a viable process with credentials of things that we've done already with large organizations, global organizations, layered organizations in the world, this is how we can help not only convincing the CISO because he's with us. He's a visionary person, he's executive, he knows where he wants to go, but we rather can convince the teams, his teams, the SOC manager, he's a pivot, the SOC manager, security operator, that we in the day-to-day will work with him in the future. We need to convince him and his SIEM engineers. This is their profession. When they introduce themselves, they're not saying, I'm a SIEM engineer, I'm a Splunk engineer. So now you need to tell me that I need to move from Splunk to Sentinel or Chronicle or whatever. This is very hard. So the only way to convince at least most of them, because you would never be able to convince all of them, is to show them viable experience. How did we do that in the past, and how can we help you doing that moving forward? Show a process, show case studies, show content, and show specific technological layers that you put on to have dual run. So it will be phased and faded out over time, not an immediate change, because no CISO will take an immediate change. That's too big of a risk. And sometimes the storage needs to stay like 12, 13, depends on the regulation. After you decommission or after you move, before you move to a Splunk, to a cloud native platform, you need to decommission the Splunk. Sometimes it takes longer. So we've seen all versions almost. And I think the Cyberproof can share, maybe we can deep dive to that in another session with some of our experts that did that in the past. We can share a lot of knowledge and insights with the CISO team and with the CISO themselves.
I agree. It's a kind of religion a lot of the times. Once you fell in love with that system, you believe that's the right system for me, the best system. There is some kind of halo effect around that system from your perspective. And what we see is that after this whole transformation process, suddenly they're looking at a system that is significantly cleaner, that they don't have all those historical rules that were put in place, and no one wants to take them out because you don't really know how it's going to affect your environment, your security posture. And suddenly you have simple, understandable use cases, rules, a clean system with all the historical that needed, obviously for regulation. But from looking forward, it becomes much simpler to understand and to manage. So I think that they do appreciate it afterwards, and even that religion becomes something that you can convert over time. So Yuval, I know that marketing gave you a list of paper with some of the interesting statistics that we recently seen with our customers. Do you want to also share that with our listeners?
Well, I mentioned earlier that we have a vast experience with enterprise market, global companies that went through significant transformation processes. For example, let's take the case study of how we helped to reduce the cost. With one of these organizations, we're talking about 200,000 people company with about 300 entities being consolidated into one organization. We managed, through the migration to Sentinel, in that case, we managed to decrease the cost by, I would say, more than 80%. And this is dramatic. Let me say that from the other direction. Without making that move and helping them to reduce the cost, they would never transition or transform into the cloud native platform. They would never do that because this is not something that CISO can convince the C-suite that the budget makes any sense. So this is a very specific experience that we have. But let's talk about volume of data. We're talking about numbers, quantification. We've seen us supporting another enterprise, growing from about 10 to 11 tera per day to 30. The 3x growth over just a couple of years. Without managing the cost, you would never survive this growth. And, data is growing, companies are growing, business is growing, economy is growing. So we will see that everywhere. Right now, we're having a discussion with another customer that runs with 100 tera per day. So this is 3 point something bigger than the last one that I just mentioned. So with these kind of volumes, you need creativity and sophisticated solutions, as this is where Cyberproof is coming in.
Yeah, I would add on top of that as you're also ingesting more data, eventually you're also and you have more entities, you're exposing yourself to a much larger threat landscape, which basically means that we will eventually have significantly more alerts within the system. And the only way to be able to cope with that is to add significantly faster automation, both for the investigation as well as the response, and some of the threat hunting that we then need to also complete in order to find things that we might not even be aware of. The only way to complete those is also with adding additional automation on top of the existing tools. Those kind of things are only available when you're looking at cloud native solutions, which is why this is the way that we chose to help our customers with.
Yeah, over time you help through automation to manage and reduce the cost, but also the mutual cost, because many times we work in a hybrid fashion with enterprises. They have their security operation costs, and we have our own. I mean, they procure us, of course, but we can reduce both ends. We have examples of how we reduce the people cost by 40% through higher percentages of automation. This is exactly where the security operation world, the MDR market, is going to, and I think we should keep being ahead of the curve. But it's not only our own play. We in Cyberproof, we believe in how we work together with the customers, how we grow together with the customers, and how we become more efficient with our customers. Some of them are asking us to do everything for them. Some of them want to have just a neck-to-neck kind of mechanism of operations. You know that because you run it. The more we are flexible with the customer, the more we need to be more cost-effective. And this is our philosophy, when we come to improve the security posture of our customers.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the same customer that you just mentioned that grew from 10 to 30, the cost over time actually stayed the same because we were able to overcome that growth using automation.
Yeah. Automation is a big word. Maybe I can say a few words about that. How do you actually do that? You need to identify, you need to have a methodology of identifying the threats that you want to manage to cope with. You want to build case studies or use cases around them, around each one of them, and make more and more customizations. When you understand the security operation methodology, it's much easier to use the cloud native tools that we just discussed over the past 30 minutes to make it automated. So it's not only about automation, it's also about the processes and the people who run it, and having methodology that would enable you over time to add more and more use cases, or more automation, less cost, or more data, same cost, as you mentioned earlier.
Oh, Yuval, I didn't know that you know that well. I actually have an opening in my automation team. If
I will seriously consider joining a Cyberproof operations team.
Cool. Great. Well, Yuval, I think that we will have additional sessions where we can dig deeper both into the automation process, how we're building that, and giving some additional specific use cases examples from our customers. But for this session, what we wanted to talk really about is migrating to a cloud native SIEM worth the hassle. What is your kind of final conclusion around this topic?
In 2024, there will be more pressure coming from the board to CISOs to provide more assurances for security and cost management. And the only way in the long term to meet those kind of concerns coming from the board is to work with cloud native platforms. It's not easy. You need a seasoned, veteran partner to work with. I believe that what we've built in Cyberproof over the past few years, decisions we've made, talent we recruited, including yourself, and technology that we've developed, makes Cyberproof the right partner. There are others, but I'm not sure there are many that has the experience that we have. I look forward to 2024, working with those CISOs that I'm meeting all the time, asking for this kind of advice and help. And I'm sure that the market will ask it more and more, and we'll be there.
Excellent. I want to thank you for joining us on this session. I personally am also looking forward for 2024. I think it's going to be an amazing year, both from all the integrations that we are building currently with AI and machine learning, and that will create an amazing 2024, both for Cyberproof, but also I think not only for all of our customers, but generally within the market. I think that many MDRs are going in the right direction, and we're happy to lead them.
Thank you, Doron, for being here with me. Let's make 2024 safer from all perspectives.
Thank you.